thyme?
Pronounce time.
Like fresh thyme?
Pronounce time.
Like fine. Like the plant.
Is that what you are referencing? Alright, so if we talk about an inverse function, or inverse anything, so when you hear the word inverse, what does that really make you think of?
Songs.
Okay, so unless the songs are about math, I doubt we want to go down that.
Like it's inverse.
Oh, in a verse. So when we think about the compound word inverse, can you give me an example of an inverse? Something being the inverse of something else. Okay, so mathematical mindsets right now, right? We're talking about math. We're not trying to make a funny answer.
No, but isn't it vice versa mean inverse?
Well, what does vice versa mean?
And the same thing works the other way around.
Are you just trying to read what's on is vice versa up there?
I just see ABCs and I'm like kindergarten.
So, could you say the ABCs backwards?
ZWX. I forget.
You already messed it up.
I could do it at one point. ZYXWBUTXRQPOMNLK.
I think you skipped an S in there somewhere.
I can say the Pledge of Allegiance backwards.
Sorry, my hands are really cold today. I don't know why. So that's why I'm awkwardly sitting there with my hands in my pocket. I'm cold. So if I say multiplication, thank you. I'm glad somebody's on the same page with me. If I say addition,
Subtraction.
if I say, and you already brought this one up, but if I say square root,
Square.
if I say cube root,
To the third power.
if I say 3x squared plus 5x minus 7.
3x, the square root of 1/3 x minus. Well, I don't remember the rest of the equation.
So, certain one-step functions are going to be easier for us to think about than others, but it's all the same mindset of how do I take something that has been done and undo it or apply the inverse function to essentially turn everything around. So if we have one of these function machines, quote unquote, that when we put 3 in, 13 comes out. When we put 4 in, I'm going to start to color code this to make life a little easier.
I got it.
Do you got it?
It's multiplied by 3 add 4.
When we put 4 in, we get 16. When we put negative 3 in, we get negative 5. So you said you think it's what now?
3x plus 4.
Triple, and then add 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So if this function machine f of x, so let's go ahead and write that down, is 3x add 4.
1/3 x minus 4.
Careful.
Oh yeah, you have to do the perpendicular line.
Oh.
Well, I don't know what you're talking
but
about.
how do you know what the plus 4?
This function is
How?
a line, and then you have to make the perpendicular line.
Well, the
for
perpendicular is negative reciprocal.
Yeah.
No, it's inverse reciprocal.
What's the difference?
It's negative 1/3.
That's the same thing as
Yeah. What's the difference between negative reciprocal and inverse reciprocal?
I don't know.
Like, I get, like, I guess
Actually,
negative
so
1.
careful. Negative and inverse are not always synonymous.
Yeah, I know, but if you multiply it by negative. I guess, yeah, you're right, Jake. Inverse is better.
I don't know why we're arguing perpendicular lines, but I didn't bring up lines. I didn't bring up graphing
This
this.
function is a line, and to find the inverse of it, we can find the line that's perpendicular to it.
Or,
Which is still negative 1.
okay, so I'm not saying yes or no, but or what I was going to suggest here and ask, how do we isolate the input? Because the inverse function, instead of saying output is blah, 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 for the inverse function, we want to say the input is, we want the input isolated on its own.
It's f of x.
So if we are going to go to isolate this input x, what would we undo first?
minus 4 on both sides.
The 4, right? So we got a minus 4 on both sides. So we're going to write this. F of negative 1 of x. So this is how we write inverse functions. When we're done, though, so here's the thing. That's when we're done, while we're working this, I'm going to drop a little shape so I can work up here. While we're working this, I would still keep your terms how they are. And here's what I mean. I would subtract 4 on both sides, but then keep everything else that you had written. So f of x minus 4 equals 3 times x.
Yeah, because the x is going to become the f of -1.
Yeah, the x is going to become the f of -1. Or f to the -1, I guess we're going to say. The inverse of f would be the easier way to say that. So now we divide by 3. But be careful, because earlier somebody said y divided by 3 minus 4 or something like that, and order matters here. That divide by 3 happens to everything.
Yeah.
So now our isolated x is the y divided by 3, or the f of x divided by 3, right? Whichever you want to say.
Minus 4/3.
Minus 4/3.
Can't you just write f of x minus 4 over 3?
I knew you guys would bring that up. We can also just write that.
So that's the in.
So the inverse function
That's it.
is f of x minus 4 over 3.
Okay, this is
That
simple
makes
enough.
sense.
And really what we could say here is the x will equal the y minus 4 over 3.
So the inverse is just x by itself.
The inverse is isolate the input instead of isolate the output.
Simple enough.
So we don't.
Oh, famous last words. This is simple enough. Give me a challenge. Oh, crap.
Yeah, give me a challenge. Come on.
All right, well, you guys got that one fine and dandy then. So here's the function we've been given. Multiply by 5, subtract 8, then divide by 2. This is what happens to the input. So first we need to write out.
It's 2.5x minus 4.
Guys, I don't know at what point somebody said this class is a race, but this class is not a race.
It was a race when it was binomials and to see how who was the fastest.
Well, I mean, still, did anyone get anything for getting there first? Aside from pride.
Yeah, pride. Dude, my favorite,
Alright.
my favorite of the 7 deadly sins.
Multiply by 5,
5x minus
then
8,
subtract 8,
and then all over that.
then divide by 2. Now, while I don't disagree that sure we can simplify this, we could also just leave it. Because if we're going to start undoing stuff, it might be easiest to have it written like this. So go ahead and try to figure out the inverse of g of x.
I think I got it. I think it's 2x plus 8 over 5.
Order is very critical.
Yeah.
And be careful flip-flopping x, like, if you use x again, it's just a little dangerous to keep track of. I'm not saying it's wrong, because it's not wrong. This is just when inverse functions are a pain in the butt. If we use x in g of, like, the inverse of g of x, that's right, because we're now saying a new function with input x. But when we compare them, it can get very complicated to look at comparing the original function to the inverse function when both of them use x.
I did it differently, but I got the same answer.
That's what I was about to ask. What answer did you get? Because
Same one.
you really probably did it the same. You just wrote it differently.
I kind of.
Well, there's only there's only one right way to work these steps in the inverse
Well,
order.
I didn't use the equation to do it. I did it different way that
Careful,
it's still
'cause
kind
that-
of the right
That
way.
kind of got us in a trap door the first time.
Yeah, you silly.
Well,
Whoa.
but I used the steps.
Just
which
make
was
sure
the
we go in the
same
right
thing
order.
as the equation.
Just
Yeah,
make
you
sure we go in
back-
the right order. So the inverse of g of x is now, what are we saying?
2x
2
plus
2f of x plus 8 all over 5.
It's just x.
It was actually 2g of x is what we were using, but
It's just
now it's just x when we write the inverse function. And this is what I meant, like,
Oh.
I would, if I was you and struggling with this, use x and y instead of g of x and x and like. So 2x plus 8 all over 5.
Yeah. And you can use the steps to get that instead.
What do you mean?
Like
Use
if
the
you,
steps.
You move the white block out of the way, please.
Move the weight block.
That's what it is. So you can do the steps backwards and then apply it all to x.
That's unfortunate.
So you take x and then you multiply, and you take the opposite. So you take x and then you multiply by 2 and then add 8.
What is the
And then
output
divide by
if
5.
3 is
Oh.
the
So you mean you did what they did, but you did the inverse operations and in the inverse order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's the
So
same
you
thing,
did-
but you can just skip the original statement. You can
Okay.
Silly.
I dig
if
it.
you're given the steps.
If you're there's the if we're actually given the steps listed out. Okay.
Because it's kind of the same thing.
Silly C.
So then this x now, was that the original input or the original output?
Output.
That was the original output.
'Cause you're
Right,
doing it
so-
backwards. You're given an output, and now you're trying to solve the input.
So then-
output right now for
No, we're trying to solve the input.
So this will solve for the input. This is saying input equals yada 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 when this is the output. Which is what I mean by like, this is really x equals something y, right? There's actually a y in our equation over here. If I could spell. Alright, we'll try one on your own.
Sure.
Steps are not listed out. Although we could list the steps out if we wanted to. If struggling, I would use y instead of the function notation. But if not struggling, then you're fine. Do you guys know when the next Friday you don't have math is?
I've never. The only time I've witnessed not having math is once.
It might be next Friday.
Have you missed any days? Then maybe.
Well, Mr.
Oh, and then
Hall-
they screw-
Mr. Hall
yeah.
runs it, so he might be accidentally making some mistakes. Okay, I think I got it. Now.
For
I-
A or B?
I'm both. Now, I may have done it completely wrong, but I did get A answer.
I got answers.
Great.
Don't know if they're correct answers.
I was about to say, I got lots of answers. I don't know what the questions are, though.
That's how you play Jeopardy.
What was
There's-
the question again?
Well, there's some song lyric about, like, now that I've found all the answers, I forget what the question is. And I always thought that was, like, a very interesting lyric.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Yeah.
Galaxy.
Who, what?
Jake and I thought the same thing. Yeah. How they have the answer to the question of the life, the universe, and everything, but they don't know what the question is.
Right, yeah, well, what is it, 42?
Yeah.
42 is the answer, but they don't know the question.
It's a giant universal game of Jeopardy.
Yeah, and then as soon as they're about to figure it out, then the Vogons demolish the computer for a space highway.
I need to go back and watch that movie again. It has been
I'm
probably
assuming-
years.
Okay, what did you get for an of X?
for n-1.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So like they created Earth.
I
with
got
the
x plus 12 over 4.
four left the inverse and everything, and like hours before it was supposed to spit it out, the Humans demolished Earth for a space highway.
Oh, I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to move on and get back to the math, because otherwise we're going to talk about
Wait, the
Hitchhiker's
computer
Guide.
was on Earth?
Yeah, Earth was the computer.
I was about to Earth is the computer.
Oh, yeah. Run by the rat. Got it. Yeah.
Oh, the rats. All right, what is inverse of n of x?
N to the negative first of x.
Or what is the
Yeah.
function?
Oh, x plus 12 over 4.
That's what I got as
Yeah.
well.
Or we could say 1/4 x plus 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
And inverse for j of x,
Plus
or
two.
j negative 1 of x,
that's what I got as well.
is what?
10x plus 7.
But the question is, are we wrong?
No.
Then I have to say no, because you are correct.
Yay! Cool.
Inverse functions that are simple.
Oh,
and
it gets
have
tougher,
only
though.
2 parts are very easy.
Somebody, I was on, I think it was probably they did the math, or maybe it was they didn't do the math, and somebody was doing the 5 tomato trick. Like it was like somebody's tweet said 5 tomatoes is how you remember a mile. You know, like 5280. It's a great memory trick. And somebody obviously from Europe was like, or like, or they were like, you know how you remember kilometer? That our metric system wasn't made up by some drunk mathematician rolling dice and picking numbers for things. It's like kilo means 1,000. Done. I was like, oh my god. It just completely owned the U.S. system.
It's
So
the
speaking of
imperial
horrible-
system.
Speaking of horrible, yes, but nobody uses it except for us, and maybe like
American Samoa, I think.
I was about to say, there is very okay.
Some
I
country in
digress.
Africa.
Fahrenheit formula. What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was
I
like.
don't know.
Oh, I
Um,
know it, but you know,
Fahrenheit?
it's something with a 32 in it.
It's
and there's like a fraction involving like a 9 and a
Yes,
5, maybe,
yes,
maybe.
Wait, is it 9 fifths?
Nine. I
I
think.
know
Depends.
it's something fifths.
Which way are we going?
Or 5 9. Yeah, fair. It's like over 32 plus
Yeah, so
5 9 x or something.
Over
If you
32.
go-
Now, stab in the dark.
No, it's minus 32. It's if you're trying to go Fahrenheit to Celsius, it's minus 32. It's like
So
9 fifths.
we can figure this out. We have the technology, and by that I mean our brains. We can figure this out.
We can use points on
I
our
hear the mumbling. Like, oh, but I don't want to.
but I don't feel like it.
So,
Aw.
if we know these 2 points,
Point slope form.
Celsius, do we want to do C equals or F equals?
F equals.
Sure,
I
F
feel
equals.
like C equals would be a lot easier. Like a lot.
Yeah.
Do we want to take it back?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
C equals or F equals?
Fine, we'll do F equals.
Okay.
Wait, no, yeah, we
Just-
should do C.
I
we should
don't
do C.
care.
We should do C. We should do C.
Okay.
Oh, we're doing
So-
F.
No.
C
Two
when
points.
given F, or just forget it, I'm going to write the other
We're
one.
given
F
C,
when
we're not-
given C.
We're not given it.
We're given both.
No, we're not.
0,
No, we're
32,
giving
100,
two
212.
I thought you were talking about the 30 to 25.
Oh my god.
Forget about that. I didn't highlight that.
Yeah.
So, if I'm doing Celsius equals when given Fahrenheit, what am I adding 32, subtracting 32?
Subtracting 32.
So if I'm going to try to go C equals something, like I subtract 32. And then we said there's either like a 5/9 or a 9/5.
I think it's 9 fifths.
Yeah.
9/5.
Wait, we can see 212 degrees Fahrenheit is bigger than 100 degrees Celsius. So there should be more Fahrenheits per Celsius.
So if F is going to be over here, is it 9/5 or 5/9?
5 9.
So does that work, or do we have to change when we divide by 9? Because 0, this obviously doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
The interruption. Guinevere, Pontius, Gersh, please come to the office. Guinevere, please come to the office.
I'm gonna wait. We have a one of these.
No.
Whittier.
Yeah.
I think it's
They're probably British.
probably British.
Probably British.
Hey,
That sounds
office.
like a very British name.
Jake, are you British?
No.
Are you?
Hey, play with this for a second, because I'm just to let you guys know, she goes by Mia, and she might not be confident enough to tell you guys. Oh, yeah, I should have changed channels. Thanks, Chrissy. All right, so when Fahrenheit is 32, we need to subtract 32 and get back to 0. But I think if I put 32 into that formula, the 5/9 is going to mess with it. So I think we need to do something else.
Maybe we put in parentheses the F minus 32. Would that do it?
So maybe instead we do F minus 32 in parentheses.
Oh, and then times
Times
5/9. Yeah, I think that's how it goes.
Try that. What's 212 minus 32?
180. No.
Times.
Yeah, 180.
So times 5/9? Or do 180
Yeah,
divided by
that's
9
right.
and times 5?
That's right.
So that's right.
Yes.
Try 0 to double check it. 0 minus, or 32 minus 32, 0 times. Well, that's always going to work once I get this to be 0. Okay, so we're fairly confident in this.
I am extremely overconfident in this. This is right. You can't prove it wrong.
I don't really want to. This is complicated. I hope that this is right. Okay, well, if that is C equals when given F, let's find the F equals when given C.
Oh no. It would be the inverse, right? So this is 9/5.
9/5 C plus 32.
Right? Or yeah. I agree.
Well, when Celsius is 0, does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about 100?
When Celsius is 100, it's still kind of nice.
9? That's 180 plus 30. Yeah, it does work. Yay. Wait, it is 180, right? Yeah, it is.
So, herein lies the when are we ever going to need this? Situations like this, where you're saying, okay, here's a unit conversion function. Well, if I need to go the other direction, just find the inverse of the function. Obviously, he says.
Just do that.
All right, so if we knew 30 degrees Celsius, we could plug that, because 30 degrees sounds cold. Is 30 degrees Celsius cold?
No.
I don't know, let's figure it out. I think Akshaya's already doing
That's
that.
above freezing, I know.
What's 9 times 30?
270.
270 divided by 5.
That's like
It's like
40.
no. Wait,
275
54.
divided. Yeah.
270 divided by 5, I think.
54 plus
Yeah.
32. That's like 86 degrees.
that's pretty cold.
No, it's pretty cold.
Yeah, that's pretty cold.
So about 10 degrees hotter than it was on Saturday.
Wait, what? Does water boil at 100 degrees Celsius?
Yes,
Yep.
it does.
That's really hot.
I mean, that's 200 degrees Fahrenheit, yes.
Wait,
So that's why
is it
people get
exactly 200
confused.
degrees Fahrenheit?
Yeah, it's by
Water
default.
boils at 212 Fahrenheit.
Oh, 212.
This is why people in other countries get confused by our measurements and we get confused by theirs, because then 1 degree does not equal 1 degree, right? There's no like direct comparison. There's not
Well,
a
there
direct
is. You
relationship.
just have to do some 9/5 or 5/9 multiplication.
You just have to do
Is
it.
that rough or is that actually like exact?
Oh, that's exact. For what we've created. But then there's also Kelvin.
Yeah.
So
Which
Kelvin is
Kelvin?
essentially Celsius.
0 is absolute 0 though, right?
Well, absolute 0 is absolute 0 using what scale?
Kelvin.
Yeah, using Kelvin.
And then what is that temperature of absolute 0 related to, let's say, Celsius?
It's like negative 2,000. No, it's higher than that.
I don't know.
It's up in the thousands, I think.
Well, then I'm not going to tell you.
I just look
Well,
at the
then I guess I'll
see
just
when
get
the
out my
alarm
computer.
goes.
This is when I wish we had a Hey Google in this classroom to just be like, how many degrees Celsius
You
is
don't
0
want
degrees
to
Kelvin?
Google in your classroom. Everyone would always just be asking.
Everyone
Hey
would
Google,
use it.
what's 5 times 5? And they're just like,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
can do it.
I have a Google Home Dot thing at home that I thought about bringing in here for that.
Echo Dot?
No, because it's by Google. I think the Echo is from Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Either way. All right, so you guys might feel like you're too good for this linear
With
function.
assigned homework and
Alexis
not have to do all of it?
It's
Well, we have a lot more
dang,
lesson
that's
to do.
nowhere near where I thought it was. It's negative 273.15 degrees Celsius and negative 459.67 degrees Fahrenheit.
Shh, no one talks about the Fahrenheit conversion. Because if you're doing that, you're doing something scientific, and if you're measuring in Fahrenheit, you're probably being laughed at.
Ha
Like, I shouldn't say things like that, but for real.
ha. Also this term Britannica.
Our measurement system is kind of a joke. So, I want to circle back to something Jake said at the beginning of the lesson, actually. Hey, sir, put that away. Jake made this bold statement that our inverse functions will be perpendicular lines, and I want to test that out. So, h of x, 2x minus 1, nice linear function, right?
Wait,
go.
Mr. Hudson, I can
Oh,
prove
no,
you
they won't be
mathematically without us even
perpendicular,
proving
wrong.
it. It'll be really quick.
They won't be, because it'll be reciprocal, but it won't be opposite reciprocal.
Again, you are processing very quickly, but earlier your quick processing led you down a stray road you didn't want to go down.
That's,
If we put h of x on our paper, please and thank you.
h of x.
H of x, 2x minus 1. So I'm sure we could look at that and say slope and y-intercept pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The inverse function of it
Would be plus 1 over 2. It's plus
we'd have to add 1, then divide by 2.
1/2 x plus 1/2.
That's what I got. I just left it in the one issue.
So, is that slope perpendicular?
No.
No.
What is it missing?
The negative.
The negative.
But does it make a cool angle? Yes, it does. I wonder what that angle is. I wonder if it's always the same or if it differs. It probably differs.
Well, what if we tried this with like a slope? Really?
Fire alarm?
Well, good thing my class is
Can
small.
we just stay in
May
bed?
I have your attention,
No,
please?
whatever they tell us,
May I
listen.
have your attention, please? There has been a fire reported in the building.
Hey, so I don't know if this is Mr. Flynn being Mr. Flynn and us just having a drill we didn't know about, or if this is legit. So, like, leave your stuff. We're not supposed to take anything, but I guarantee the building's not going to burn down.
Okay.
Like,
good.
there is a fire system.
I would
May I
not want
have
to.
your attention, please?
You got my attention.
Okay, my stuff's in a fireproof locker.
So, we can, however, wait a second if you guys want to let the crowd disperse and then leave.
The fire alarm guy is so chill.
I know, like,
He's like, the building is on fire. Please do not light it.
It's like they got, like, Eeyore
May I
or
have
somebody
your
to...
attention, please? May
Can
I
I-
have your attention, please?
can you
There has been a fire reported in the building.
I haven't watched Eeyore in a long time, so I don't think my
You're
Eeyore...
gonna get on fire. Take
Well, we need
stop
to put
moving.
it. If you're on fire, please move quickly. All right, we should probably go. I'm just making sure I have the stuff I need. I guess I'm supposed to take this, although
I don't have
I
somebody
don't.
misbehaving and the end will be
May
like,
I
yeah,
have
lit
your
on fire.
attention, please?
We can't just like not do anything.
Fire broke for the win.
We should have had fire for 5 more.
I know! That's what I was hoping.
5 more minutes of fire. I mean, if you guys want to go take a walk, we could.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to walk.
Dude, you
Or
don't
we
like
can just
walk?
light another
It's
fire.
cold.
Light another. That's incriminating. Another makes it sound like you did the first one. All right, so our lines are not perpendicular. We are missing the opposite to make that happen. So remember, like, inverse does not necessarily mean opposite reciprocal. Inverse, here, we get the inverse behavior without being opposite reciprocal. All right, so what about inverse of x squared?
Root X.
Wait, what?
Square root X.
Well, I keep hearing you, but then you just say x?
Jake,
Or are you
So-
picking up where Akshay is saying square root? So the inverse of x squared is square root x. So how can you like visualize how that looks? What
You got the
in-
little
Square
big
and
little
then
arm,
X.
and then you got X.
That's crazy.
Well, oh, you mean like it's like you
X
take one
squared
side of
compared
the square.
to.
Oh, like the graph. Okay. That.
So
Oh.
x squared like the graph compared to its inverse of square root of x. I think we figured out SQRT also works.
There's also something on your computer.
Oh,
Okay.
that's ugly. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my.
So-
Is the parabola tilted on its side?
I think it's
Not
Wait,
so wait,
look,
so
it's one-
not perpendicular,
Well, kind of.
right? But they do have this weird like opposite
They are
behavior.
rotated 90 degrees. It's just like.
And we said 2x versus 1/2 x, also not perpendicular.
But they have a nice angle. It's
And
not ugly angle.
3x versus 1/3 x.
Now I don't.
It's not the same angle. Dang it.
So there is something very interesting happening here,
They're
though.
growing by the same amount, I think.
So if I turn off these, turn off those. So there's 3x and 1/3 x.
Yeah, obviously.
Well,
No, I
any
Whoa.
two lines
So hold
in a
on.
circle.
2x and 1/2 x.
Well, what
X squared and square root x. There's some sort of cool relationship here.
They all meet at 1, 1, and see how they want. Well, that's.
Well, that's because all of them have the origin.
They all meet at 0.
Well, that's because all of them
I know.
have no added.
You silly little.
I'm just trying
So these do meet at 1, 1, but then they kind of trade places, right? The blue line was on top, and then it.
They,
It goes like this.
But then the other ones don't do that.
it does do that.
So wait, green and purple are inverses. Black and red are inverses.
Uh-huh.
What if I did, instead of like 2x, what if I do like 3/2 x and then 2/3 x?
and closer.
Makes more lines.
Yeah, but can anyone generalize what all of these functions and their inverses have in common?
They're just rotations of each other.
Well, any line is just a rotation of any other line.
That's true.
Well, if it's a straight line. Are they all rotated 90 degrees?
They're not 90. We already said that.
Oh,
I don't know.
Sorry, not that one. This
oh
one.
yeah, they're not perpendicular. They all intersect with each other.
We will pick up this tomorrow when
What
you guys come to
homework
class.
do we have?
So 941 is 2 days worth of homework, so it's actually not bad if we're splitting it up into 2 different days worth of homework. Actually, I can just look at my book because it's out here. I know you're asking for like what questions can we skip, and I might let you skip a couple, but we're near the end of the chapter, so this is fairly
Oh, here,
important.
return this pencil. Good job.
Now we need to do 132 and 133.
Why is my backpack over my head?
Oh, you mean my new backpack? Don't you like it?
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's not.
You know,
Better
I'm gonna
than your
steal
old
it
I
from
can't
you.
steal what I've rightfully stolen.
Hey, so we're going to do all of these, but we'll probably do some of it tomorrow. Because we will have extra time tomorrow. We'll finish this lesson. So I'm not going to tell you to skip any of them yet. Tomorrow we can determine if there's any like later ones to skip. But do the first few problems, because those are all important.
Wait, actually, did you just say Dave's backpack is moving?
Yeah.
So lunch is going to start about 10 minutes later.
What? Oh, that makes sense. Hey, we got more time. You guys can do your homework. Hey, just jump into your homework.
Does that mean we're losing lunchtime because of?
No, we'll adjust our afternoon schedule. Because we eat after all of the Perry lunches, so we can stay down there.
Oh, so
like
they
that.
need more lunchtime because they were missing out on lunch. Okay.
I do not like foundations.
Okay. For my impact project, I think I'm gonna make a class that goes during foundations as an option.
Foundations.
You could come to it instead.
Wouldn't you lie about the exact project though? Like lie about your
Why?
No.
No, but like, can't you?
You can
Hey, so you
lie.
can't complain to me about